Which one of these libraries sounds better? Cinematic Studio Series, Musio, Symphonic Series, and the BBC Symphony Orchestra. Today we're gonna make a comparison between these libraries and see which one sounds better to me and to you, and which one should you buy, because this shit's expensive as hell. So recently I was exercising by transcribing on Cubase a track that I quite like, and at the end I said, what if I transcribe it with every library I bought throughout the years? And that's exactly what I did. This will be from kind of a different perspective from what I've seen in other videos, because I see the majority of people try to replicate the sort of Hollywood movie sound with orchestral libraries. Well, I don't, because I don't like that. Like, I'm not really a fan of that style. So no John Williams, no John Powell, no Johnny Sins, none of that. This channel is about video game music, anime music, so like, you know, nerdy Gen Z type of stuff. And that is important because if you do this type of style, you are looking for different things in your orchestral libraries, that being the sound, you want it to be a little bit more bright than dark, and you want to have good articulation for doing fast passages, especially with the strings. So like on the Hollywood sound, you would have these long, lush chords and melodies. Here, as you will see, there are faster parts that jump a lot. So you want a library that can do that and can also cut through the mix better than, you know, those more like lush, romantic. Ooh. So if you're looking to buy one of those libraries, this video is going to be kind of an extra, depending on what type of style you like to do. If you like to do Hollywood style, maybe take this video with a grain of salt, because you know, it's a different style and I'm looking for different things. So let's get into it. The track I transcribed is Toad Park from Mario Sports Mix, a game from the Wii that I played quite a bit when I was a kid. Really good game. So this is the level I'm talking about. Definitely not Hollywood. So we're gonna go from worst to best. Stick around till the end because it starts a little bit weak probably, and it gets better at the end. And final disclaimer, the percussions that I used are going to be the same throughout all the different versions, because some of the libraries, like Cinematic Studio Series, for example, doesn't have a percussion library. So I've used, you know, some from the BBC, some from the Symphony series, and some from Musio as well. And they're going to be consistent throughout all the versions. So let's start with the Symphonic series, which has the strings, the brass, and the woodwind. Really pretty, I gotta say. That design-wise, if I had to rate them, probably this would be the best, because look at this, so pretty. So yeah, let's start with the Symphonic series. Pros and cons about this library. So pros is that it comes with the contact bundle. So if you have the collector's edition, you're gonna get this for free essentially. But like, please do not buy it separately, because it's like $1,000, I think. Even during sales, if it's 50% off, don't bother buying. There is much better stuff you get for your money. Another pro, I would say that both the strings and the winds are kind of thick, like are kind of, you can hear them. Like, they have a lot of body, woodwinds as well. And another pro is that you have the ensemble libraries for all three. So for the brass, for the strings, for the woodwinds, you have the ensemble, which can be useful for layering. And here made everything more simple because, as you will see in the next libraries, instead of having a woodwind staccato here, I will need to layer the clarinets, the flutes, the piccolos, the cor anglais, whatever. And sometimes you don't really need that type of diversity. You just want some woodwinds. You just want a little bit to hear some woodwinds, but not like the clarinet, the flute, the cor anglais. So this is another pro. You have the ensembles for all three sections. And the final pro is that percussion series is pretty good. I do use it quite often. If you watched my past videos, you see that I use it often for timpani, for snares, for tam-tam. If you have these libraries because they were in your complete bundle, I would say try the percussions at least. They're quite decent and flexible, which is really important. And now let's go to the cons of the symphonic series. Number one, most important, like the sound is not the best, you know? It sounds too wet. I think this library was recorded in a church. Why the fuck would you record the library in a church? Maybe there's some reason. I don't know. It just sounds like, hear the tail of the reverb. Why? So it's not really flexible if you want maybe a drier sound. It's too wet. And you know, also the horns, the brass section is a bit too nosy. I don't know if that's the right adjective, but like, can you hear the nosy type of, I don't know, maybe if that's the sound you're looking for in certain tracks, this could be useful, but for the rest, I don't know, I wouldn't use it. Like the staccatos, hear the staccatos. I don't know. So again, this is my opinion from my style, from my journey of composition. So if you make it work, every comment might be useful for people and for me as well, because I might do other comparisons in the future. And if you leave some constructive feedback, I can, be better next time. Oh, and also another con of the symphonic series is that it doesn't really have many articulations. So for example, this is the flute. You don't have, for example, a marcato. You don't have staccatissimo. There aren't many instruments of the orchestra. Like, for example, the woodwind section, we have bass winds, which, is an ensemble of the bass winds, but whatever. You have the bassoons, clarinets, flutes, oboes, and saxophones for some reason. Like, there is no cor anglais, for example, which is something that personally I use. There is no piccolo, there is no bass flutes, bass clarinet. In this version, I needed to emulate the piccolo by putting another flute section 1 octave higher and making it louder. So yeah, it's not good. So 4th place goes to the symphonic series. Yep. Do not buy this library because you want an orchestral library. It costs too much money. Even if it was 200, I wouldn't buy it. I had it on my complete bundle. So yeah, overall, symphonic series, not good. So let's go to Musio. Now, this already sounds more cohesive. I'm not a fan of like the trumpet, honestly, like this sound. Like it's too virtual in a way, I don't know. So let's go to the pros and cons of this library. So the first pro is that there is an insane amount of library for cheap. You know, at first I was kind of skeptic of Musio because, oh, you don't own your libraries. But if you just do a quick calculation, just the price of one library, you know, one professional library costs 3 years worth of subscription. So especially if you are a beginner or at the beginning, I wish I had this when I first started, honestly, because for like €8 a month, and you also have like 1 month of free trial, you get so many freaking libraries. Like you have all the Cine Sample series, so Cinebrass, which is really praised as a library. It's just you get so much shit for €8 a month. And some of these libraries are actually must-haves, in my opinion. One of them being CineHarp, for example, is the best. It's the best harp library that there is, in my opinion. Then you have Holy Woodwinds, which is basically scales. Then you have the string runs, for example. Super useful. You have the Tina Guo series, so like you have the solo cello, you have some solo violins, you have some choirs, drum kits, like you have so much freaking stuff for just €8 a month. I got carried away a little bit. This is to say that the main pro of Musio is that it's cheap and you have so many libraries that complement your orchestral template, right? So you not only have Cinebrass, Cinestrings, Cinewinds, and whatever, but you have these other complementary libraries, and also Cineperk, which is pretty good. But this is kind of where the pros ends, because the cons, the main con is that it kind of struggles for fast passages like the sound. Like, it's not the best. I had to layer a sforzando articulation with legato articulation, and still doesn't sound the best in my opinion. But maybe I need to experiment with it more to take the best out of it. Then again, we have Woodwinds Ensemble, and it's much better than the Symphony series ensemble. So this is on my main big template I use all the time. Oh yeah, speaking of woodwinds, there is no, at least I didn't see them. Maybe I'm stupid, maybe I'm tripping, but the winds, there are no wind sections. It's just solo winds. Like in Cinewind's core, which should be the essential wind library, you have the individual instruments. You either have solo instruments or the whole ensemble. So I don't know, maybe I'm missing something. Let me know in the comments. Horns. In some registers it's better than others. Basses are good, I think. Basses are pretty good. So yeah, this is the Musio version. I would say third place, deserved. It has some limitations in terms of sounds. It sounds a little bit more cohesive than the last one, but the sound still doesn't feel flagship in a way. So yeah, let's go to number 2 now, which is the BBC. finally, it sounds more like an orchestra, like a full orchestra and not just pieces of orchestra put together. And this is the main pro of the BBC, in my opinion. It's cohesive, it has sort of a symphonic vibe, so really classic orchestra, which can also be a con, honestly, because like the moment you need more impactful sound, maybe you do something hybrid, it starts to be a little bit weak. And weakness is the main thing about the BBC. The brass section, for example, is kind of weak. Like this is the max dynamic of the horns. It doesn't sound like should be a fortissimo. You don't have that like big sound. So it's not really flexible as a library. Even the strings are a little bit weak. At least they have the marcato, which is good. Pro number 2 is that it has a shit ton of articulations. These are all the articulations. Legato long, long concertino, long flautando, long harmonics, long marcato attack, long sul ponticello, long sul tasto, short collegno. Like, there is so much shit. Problem is, you're most likely never gonna use all of them. Lots and lots of articulations that, you might never use, but at least they're there for edge cases in which, I don't know, what is your style? Maybe you do classic composition, in which case this might be good. But for me, this just wastes space in the RAM, which brings me to the next con, which is the amount of RAM that this library eats is insane. And it's not the time to be low on RAM, because if you want to buy some new RAM, you might as well go buy a fucking Rolex, because the prices are insane. You cannot purge the sounds the way you can do on Contact. So like not having Contact and the purge function, for example, let me show you. You can see here that it has 0.5 gigabytes of RAM, but I can just go purge all samples and now it's gonna be 0 in memory. And when I start playing, it uploads in the RAM. So it doesn't upload all the notes with all the mic positions directly. You can just purge them, and when you play, they get uploaded in the memory, and now you have like 20 megabytes instead of 500, right? You cannot do that with the BBC. You cannot do that. You're gonna have the RAM always at maximum. You can mitigate that a little bit by removing all the articulations, as I did, because it uploads in memory all the articulations with all the mic positions. So yeah, it looks good. Like I kind of controversial opinion. I kind of like the user interface, but the RAM might be a limitation because also it uploads all the freaking mic positions. Speaking of which, you have a shit ton of mic positions. Again, same thing about articulations. Like you have so many mic positions, all the unused woodwind section microphones. Is there people who use this a lot? I don't know. I'm not an expert of like symphonic stuff, but like I think the first 2 pages are kind of enough. You have the leader, which is nice, close, you have the stereo, you have the mids, you have the sides, and you can kind of make it more easy. So you just have far and close. So this is close, this is far, and you can tweak it how you want. This is easier, but like you're still gonna have these, and these occupy so much memory. Like you need to be prepared. If you buy this, you need to be prepared to have like 600 gigabytes of storage on your SSD, because the amount of mic positions and articulations is just insane. So you need to have 600 gigabytes of that. Like my Spitfire audio folder has 632 gigabytes of space. You need to have the specs for this. Like when I first bought it, I was using FL Studio to make music, which doesn't have the option to like deactivate an instance. So like it doesn't get uploaded into the RAM. So like I had this template with all the instruments already uploaded into RAM, and it was like something like 50 gigabytes of RAM active just on the first template. And so I decided to upgrade and go with 96 gigabytes of RAM, stuff that you cannot do anymore unless you are filthy rich. Prices of RAM is insane. For those who don't know, basically all the AI companies are mass buying memory chips from RAM manufacturers for their AI centers, data centers, whatever. And so the retail consumers like us don't have RAM anymore. You cannot find it, and if you find it, has insane prices. So you probably will have a hard time upgrading your RAM. And if you were planning on buying a laptop, buy it now, because companies are still eating the price. But the new laptops, the new phones will have lower RAMs for the same price because there is a shortage. So yeah, what I was saying, I got lost. I got freaking lost. Why do I always yap for no reason? So yeah, the pros again are that it's really cohesive and has a symphonic sound. So if that's what you're looking for, go for it. It has many articulations, many mic positions if you're like a nerd about finding the right sound in the right situation. Then also you have a core version if you don't want the pro version. You don't really need the pro version if you don't want the mic positions and you don't want the leaders. The main thing about the BBC Pro version rather than the core, which is half the price, is that on the Pro you get the leaders, you get more instruments like the fucking contrabassoon and a lot of more mic positions. But if you don't want that, I think the core is also good. And finally, the last pro is that the percussion section is pretty good. I use like the glockenspiel, the tubular bells, I use them a lot. It also has a harp, which is a little bit darker. Like the snares here are from the BBC. The Piatti as well. So good percussion library. And the cons are that the RAM usage is too much. It's not on contact. It requires a lot of space on your drive. It's not good for intense, loud things, so it's not really flexible. So finally, let's get to the next one, the best in my opinion, which is the Cinematic Studio series. As you can tell, this is my favorite one because it's just the best sound overall and it's the best to use. Like the marcato here is so good. The marcato here is nice because it just goes on. It doesn't end at a certain point like certain libraries. If you hold it, it's gonna hold the note. It's not gonna stop. You have the grit of the attack with the spiccato overlay. So you have that. Oh, so good. And on the BBC, you don't quite have this type of marcato. Is weaker, definitely. And the sound in general is just insane, man. Like, especially the woodwind section. I don't know, there is no more flagship sound to me that I've heard than the Cinematic Studio series. It's on contact, so you can purge all the samples. Like, for example, this is 20 megabytes. Another pro is that it has brass ensemble and strings ensemble, which, for example, the BBC doesn't. So that is something for like sketching or for layering. And in general, the workflow of the Cinematic Studio series is really good. With the mod wheel, basically on the staccatos, you control the articulation, which is definitely better than using key switches or, having a whole other track just for a different articulation. So for example, if we take this, if we put it up, it's going to be sforzando. If we lower it, it's going to be staccato. If we lower it even more, it's going to be staccatissimo. And here is going to be super mega hyper staccatissimo repetition. So this workflow is great because see how easy it is just to test which articulation you like just by dragging the modulation curve. So yeah, workflow is great. And in general, the articulations, it doesn't have the same amount of articulation as the BBC, but it has all the core articulation you might need. Like I've used all of them, I think in this track, except for the measured tremolo maybe. And personally, I think the strings sound better than the BBC. But yeah, some people complain about the delay. So like recording on your MIDI keyboard, there is some delay there, but I personally didn't find problems with that, maybe because I got used to the delay, and then I usually just tweak it with the piano roll. I'm not like a hardcore record everything type of dude. I use the piano roll quite a bit. The main con of the Cinematic Studio series is that it's freaking expensive, right? If you want the whole 3 sections, you're gonna spend, I think, 1,000 euros. I'm saying euros because I'm European. Like it's $400 excluding tax. And there are not really many discounts. They don't do many discounts. You have loyalty discounts, meaning that if you buy one of those libraries, then the next one is going to have like a 30% sale. I don't remember. It just altogether is going to come around 1,000 euros, $1,000. I don't know, whatever. Do your calculations, all right? But you don't get the percussion. There is no percussion library. So you need to find a percussion library. So this is the main con. So now, for example, it's Christmas time. There is no sales. There was Black Friday at 25% off, but they don't do them often. So it's expensive, all right? It's freaking expensive. Final takeaway is that to me, Cinematic Studio series is the best one. And also, yeah, I don't have other orchestral libraries that I could, review. So, for example, the Berlin series or Nucleus from Audio Imperia, I heard really good things about it. I only have these ones, and in these ones, CSS is the best one. So yeah, my final advice is go with Musio because it has many complementary libraries, and go with Cinematic Studio series. To me, this is the great combo. Maybe I will try in the future Nucleus or other like mid libraries that if they are on sale maybe at like 200-300 are interesting. And so yeah, I would avoid middle ground libraries. Maybe some of them, if you spend like 200 euros for a good orchestral library that is solid, like probably Nucleus or BBC Core maybe, but I would still just go Musio and Cinematic Studio series. Like I would wait, save some money and go with the Cinematic Studio series, and while I wait for that, I try my best to do with Musio. So yeah, did I say everything? I probably didn't say everything that I wanted to say. I forgot things, but yeah, don't buy the Symphonic series. Please do not buy it. If you have it in a complete bundle, okay, but don't buy it. BBC, a lot of money. It's sort of a middle ground between a mid-orchestral library and a great orchestral library. There's no sense into buying like a library that has compromises like that if you then are gonna eventually buy the Cinematic Studio series because it's the best one. So yeah, maybe I will do other comparisons in the future, so stay tuned. But yeah, this was my personal opinion. I'm a hobbyist. Keep in mind, I'm a hobbyist that spent a lot of money on orchestral libraries. So I'm not a pro, but I did spend a lot of time and money making music like this. So I do have opinions. So yeah, thank you for watching. See you in the next one.